when I was little, for the first 7 years of my life, I grew up on a sheep farm. My dad was the caretaker, and we would always have a little collection of orphan lambs to feed with warm bottles in the winter, and their drinking style was basically that they would headbutt us. We were tiny and they would basically headbutt us over. But I loved these little lambs, little sheep, baby sheep. And I would always call mine Sally. Each year, a new one. And I'd be asked, what are you going to call this one? Every year, every single sheep. Sally, obsessed with the name Sally. But yeah, we used to host barn dances in the shearing shed, and the shearing shed was like a magical place of, like, everything was coated in lanolin, and we would we would go. We were never allowed to really hang around when the shearing was happening because I think the shearers swore too much. So we always sort of went in when they weren't there, and we would touch everything we could touch. Everything had this greasy lanolin, but kind of not greasy in a bad way. It kind of felt kind of amazing and had a particular smell, obviously sheep smell. But there is a particular smell to the wool and the lanolin, and we would sometimes slide down the shearing chutes, where they would, once the sheep were shorn, they would be pushed, slid down these slides to the underneath part, the pens underneath the shearing shed. The shearing shed was kind of on stilts, and and these chutes, these wooden chutes, were smooth with, the lanolin from thousands, I guess, of sheep just scooting down on these slides, which we found to be terribly fun. And I remember the wool press and the density of the bales of wool that were compressed by this big wool press into these bales, these tight bales. It kind of had a plasticky, I don't know, to me they were plasticky. Maybe they were Hessian, I can't really remember properly, but they were these bags, these big square bags full, 3 bags full. And I remember, like, just little bits of wool and really, like, loving having them in my hands and playing with them. And just the whiteness of the wool that was protected in the fleece towards the sheep's body, the fluffiness, the warmth, the clean. It was so clean, and the outside wool was kind of grubby and had, bits of tea tree stuck in it or whatever, leaves and dirt or whatever. Not like a not like the forest floor, but traces. And the inner wool was much softer and lighter and clean, basically clean. So so I remember that really clearly. And so watching the wool being spun, which we never did. We never saw it spun, but I kind of knew my nana had been teaching me to knit. I used to like trying to knit with the small blue knitting needle shaped hair accessories that were actually used for setting curlers, and you'd stick them through the curler to hold it on your head. And I used to think they were fantastic miniature knitting needles, so I used to love trying to knit with those, and that's what I insisted on using. But the idea of spinning a spinning wheel, we never had one of those, but I kind of love that idea of the rhythm, the foot keeping the rhythm, turning the wheel, and the wool changing from this fuzzy clumps to this amazing thread like a spider. Just such a versatile material. And so playing with this cord that I found, which is not wool, I think it's synthetic. I'm not actually sure what it's made of. Feels like it could be partially cotton, but I'm not sure. It feels silky and there's some quality to it that reminds me of the lanolin feel on my hands. And so as I watched the woman preparing the wool by dyeing it and combing it and dyeing it and treating it and washing it and using the salt, the slow process, how it started with her picking a little impurity out of the wool first, and then it intensified and grew into this entire process of treating the wool, cleaning it and creating it into or coaxing it into a medium that could then be made into other things. And so I loved watching that process, and I loved the colour that the dye made, the look of the fruit that she pounded with the mortar and pestle, and how that made this incredible colour that then held onto the fibres in the wool. I loved the brushing of the wool. You can see the individual fibres, how they are rearranged by the brushing and softened and separated and ready for the spinning. And yeah, I loved that all those fibres are twining together through such a process of hands doing the heart's work in the world. I love that saying. And yeah, and so like the possibility with thread, the possibility that's created by the order that's created by spinning and combing and spinning and separating and dyeing, all of these processes that build together to create this amazing vehicle for creation, clothing, to be warm, like accessories, and like so much love from the hands going into these creations. I just really loved watching that process and how meditative that is, and thinking about all of the thousands and thousands of neurons and nerve pathways that are activated in the brain and in the body to allow the hands to coordinate to make such an amazing end result, and how similar that kind of is to the actual wool itself. And yeah, I just love the slowness and the meticulousness and the stretching of time, and that's okay, that all of these things take time. The boiling, the drying, the colouring, all of it, the pressing down of the wool into the colour. Yeah, the creation coming from the fibres of the body into the fibres of the wool. And I really loved that so much. And I remember the little lambs. I remember them. They would love to follow us, and they trot along with their beautiful little characters, and that company and how warm they were to hold. And then the jacket, the cape that she created, looked exactly like, though I don't think it was woven, the one that I'm thinking of, one that my mum's friend had, that had a hood that had a little string coming from the point of the hood to a pom-pom at the end. And it was wool. It was kind of scratchy though, but it was so warm and heavy. It was so heavy. But I loved seeing the plaiting and the sewing and the technique. And I kind of longed for the gentle life.